Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to the plant spot. As you can see, we're not in the plant room, but I wanted to start up here to show you, talk about monsteras. So if you like this type of content, stick around. So as I mentioned in the intro, I started up here because you guys saw me repot this monstera. And I see a lot of people struggling with the care of Monstera. Now, when I repotted this with my granddaughter, all of y'all made the observation that the pot I put her in was too tight, and you guys were absolutely right. I ended up having to take her out of there and put her in a different pot because she tipped over. She was just not steady there. And as you can see, we put a plank behind her instead of just a stick, and she seems to be happy. The one thing that I will say is that since I put her in this spot, she has not given me a leaf. I think she is still working on her roots, and that has me a little concerned. I'm still not comfortable with how I'm watering her, but we'll jump into that topic as soon as we head back downstairs. So, see you in a few minutes. So, guys, we're back in the plant room. We were upstairs with that big Monstera of mine's, and I mentioned that since I put her in that pot, I had not seen any new leaves or anything of that nature. And I really believe that it has to do with the size of the pot. Although she was too big for the pot that she was in, when I repotted her to that pot, she had a whole lot more room. So in my mind, I'm thinking that she is trying to fill that pot out. That's why I have not seen a new leaf, or at least in my experience, that's been the cause. But on today's plant spot, it's more about the monsteras, right? There's so many different varieties out there now that it's intriguing to me, and I do love this genus of plant, and I find them to be super easy to care for. But my husband was walking around and he was like, "Why do you have two of the same plants?" And I was trying to explain to him that these two are really not the same. Um, one is a Constellation, one is a Monstera Albo. Now, when we look at these two plants, they do seem very much alike. But if you notice, the Constellation, while it has variegation on it, the variegation is a little bit more spotted, right? So you see the spots of color, and in some cases, it can give you some sectoral variegation. Um, like this right here on this leaf, or even on this leaf right here. Now, you guys know in the past I did do a spotlight on the Monstera Constellation, and I had mentioned that I was underwhelmed with the plant. But as she's starting to grow and mature, I've got to say that I've come to love her. So I have to roll back my um initial assessment of this plant and say that she has truly become one of my favorites. I love this color, the yellow, the cream, she's not white. And I think that's the distinct difference between the Constellation and the Albo. Now, the Albo, if you notice, she doesn't have that spottiness of color on the leaf. It's more so green, and the whites are actually white, which makes it a little different. Now, not too long ago, I had somebody ask me what was the most expensive plant that I had purchased, and it is this Alba. I've never shelled out that much money on a plant before, and I don't know that I'll do it anytime soon. It'll have to be something that really catches my fancy. But I have been wanting this plant for a long, long time, and I purchased it. I got a 10% discount, but still, it was upwards of three digits. I'm not sure if you can find them less expensive. I do believe now with tissue culture being available, you do see these albos a little bit more inexpensive. My my experience with tissue culture hasn't been all that great. The plants for me in my environment, they grow a little weird. Um, they don't mature the same, and it seems like they have multiple growth points, and they don't look like the real seed grown or propagated plant, if you will. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of I researched type care tips on this because you guys can actually look up that stuff, right? I'm going to talk about my experience with these plants. So the one upstairs, it faces a west window and it gets ambient light from that. It's not getting direct light, it's not getting bright light, it's getting sufficient light. These two down here live in that corner. I'll walk over. These two live in this corner right here where they're getting light from this grow light, and they seem to enjoy that bright light that they're getting from there. I water these plants, I would say maybe once a week, not really on the schedule, but if you look at the tie, you can see because she's in this clear pot that she is totally dry and her pole is moist, but the pot is dry. So she'll probably get half the amount of water that she typically gets. Now, this one, on the other hand, when I purchased her, they had her on this I guess this is a wrapped up choir type thing. I'm not a fan of these because you can't keep them moist. But what I did want to point out is that you don't necessarily have to keep the choir moist. They will attach to the choir like this one has. When I initially got her, I wanted to take her off of this and put her on a clear back like I had the Constellation on. But her roots are embedded into this choir. So I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna take her off of there without damaging the roots. Now, this one I've had for maybe, I wanna say, about 5 months or so, and she has not put out a new leaf yet. Now, I tell you guys this, and I'm a firm believer of this, that when you bring a plant home, they have to acclimate. From what I can tell, she seems to be happy. She's putting out roots from the bottom. I can see the root growth down here where she's pushing roots out. So I don't think that is a problem with her root system or anything. I think that she's still trying to, I guess, acclimate or get her footing. I cannot see where there's any new growth about to happen or really gonna push out. So I've been watching this one a little closely here just to make sure that she's still doing okay. On the flip side, this boy over here, he seems to be really happy in his location. He's putting out leaves with fenestrations in them. And the roots, I can see the root growth in the pole. And you can see from this one right here, the roots are really in there. And I can feel them. They're tight. So at some point, this plant, I will have to extend it because the roots are coming up and they're drying. So I'm gonna have to put a little bit more moss in here and probably extend it in about a month or so. So we talked about like the soil medium that they're in. Um, for me, what seems to work really well is to have them in a chunky mix. And we talk about chunky mixes all the time. Basically, you can take any store-bought soil and just amend that with maybe some cocoa chips or some perlite, charcoal, things like that, just to make it airy. When they're talking chunky, all they're saying is to make sure that the soil is airy and doesn't clump together when you pick it up. So that's what seems to work for me with this particular type of plant. And fertilization, I fertilize with every watering. I do use, I think it's Super Thrive right now, Foliage Pro, and I use it at a weaker strength than recommended, which for me is what makes it safe to water with every watering. What else can I tell you about these guys? We talked about light. We talked about root growth. We've talked about, oh, pest. So I'm gonna knock on wood. As of yet, I have not seen any pests on any of my monsteras, but I will say, the I have the Asonii, and that one I've noticed thrips on. So I've always had to watch for thrips. I've heard other people comment that monsteras are prone to thrips, but I have not experienced that on this variety of monstera. I do try to keep the leaves clean. because that's how they photosynthesize. So, if I see them a little dusty, I typically just use a wet rag. When I'm treating for pests or trying to be preventive, I just use that soapy mixture. And I find that when you use that and you wipe the leaves down, you get a nice little shine. It's not showroom shine, but it's a pretty shine, a natural shine. And you're protecting the plant from future pest outbreaks. You know, let's see. What else can I tell you about these guys? Oh, why this one doesn't have splits? Okay, that's a question from my husband. He wants to understand why this one doesn't have the fenestrations, like this big leaf up here where it's got the secondary poles. This one did put out splits, which is a sign of the plant starting to mature. When they're immature, they have leaves like this with no splits whatsoever. As they become more mature, they start to fenestrate on one side. The older the plant gets is when you start to get these little holes like the one up here where it starts to give you the secondary fenestration. Now, I'll see that also online a lot where people are wondering why are their plants not fenestrating? And it's just you have a young specimen. You need to be patient and give it time and the right conditions. And as it pushes out leaves, it'll start to fenestrate more first on one side than the other. That's just how they grow. You have any other questions over there? Okay, he's done with his questions. Um, let's see. We talked about light, water, administrations, care, the differences in the leaf coloration. I think that's all I have for you today. So, Monsteras, I think, are beginner friendly. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend you dropping, $100 on a Monstera right now, but the green the green version of this plant is readily available. $20, maybe even $30, but you can get a big specimen for that price. Would I recommend it to a beginner? Absolutely. I think these plants are beginner friendly. Now, I do know what I wanted to talk about trends. I don't know if you guys follow trends. I follow trends, I just don't fall into the trends. The Monstera plant, they have developed a whole bunch of different varieties. And if you have time and you haven't seen these plants, you should check them out. Is the double Monstera, the mint, I think those are the 2 that I see the most. The Devil Monster, I believe, was auctioned off in Thailand or one of those places for like $40,000. That's a lot of money for a plant. Now, the mint is going a little cheaper. You can get a baby mint for about $30, $40. But I do believe these plants are going to come down. And those that spent that $30,000 on the plant is because obviously they want to propagate it or cross it with something else. So if you do check those out, let me know in the comment. If you're growing the monsteras, also let me know in the comment. How are they growing for you? What type of conditions do you have them in? Share with the community so everybody can get their plants to grow and thrive. If you like this type of content, also don't forget, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share with a friend. Leave us a comment. Talk to you real soon. Bye.